Thanks everybody for coming out. I'm Justin Fisher. I'm a professor in the philosophy department, and I'm going to be talking about my experiences making virtual TAs for a couple of my classes. I'm going to go ahead and put up a link here. And Addie, it may make sense for you to get that typed into the Zoom chat so that people can use that. If you like doing the QR codes, you could aim your device at that, and this will take you to this page. But this is a SMU drop folder that has a copy of the slides in it, and there are hyperlinks in the slides that you can click to get to various things. Or there's also some examples of things that I used in training the chatbots that you might want to look at some point. You have my blessing if you like multitasking to go ahead and check stuff out while I'm talking, or if you want to make note of that to look at later, you might find it useful, or I think Addie may email it out later also, so you'll have access to it that way. Good. Think I'm seeing most of the activity I expect to see as people are writing that down coming to a halt. So I'm going to go ahead and move ahead. Good. So a little bit about me. I'm a professor in the philosophy department here. I research and teach in a variety of areas of philosophy, especially involving cognitive science, philosophy of science, and taking a growing interest in issues involving technology. And a couple of my classes, I've done this mostly in classes that are already kind of technology oriented as a place to try early adoption of these sorts of things. So one course I sometimes teach is Technology, Society, and Value. And this was a course that I initially came up with custom chatbots for my students to chat with using Boodlebox. And for that one, I was trying to come up with chatbots that could discuss a lot of the course material with students, and also could discuss the syllabus with the students and answer questions about the syllabus and study tips and other sort of course-related things that I had posted that weren't really content, but were related to the course. And in another course that I teach called Minds, Brains, and Robotics, this course involves a lab, really unusual for a philosophy class, where students are programming virtual simulated robots using Python. And so I was setting up a custom ChatGPT bot to help walk a lot of novice coders through using Python. So those are the two main experiences that I have that are going to be informing a lot of what I talk about today. And I'll tell you what worked for me, some of the things that didn't work so well for me, but I'm especially curious to hear about other people here. So my guess as I was going into giving this talk was that the audience might be made up of three sorts of people. So one sort of person that I expected might come here is either somebody who already has experience building chatbots for their custom chatbots for their students, or as an aspiring builder, you have ideas of what sort of chatbot you might like to make, and you're here to learn more how to do it. So maybe we'll have some folks like that here. My guess is we might get some scouts here, people who are just trying to keep an eye on what sort of technological developments are happening these days. So they'll be up to date, but maybe have no real intention of getting their own hands dirty with this sort of thing. And I'm not sure whether we'll have some skeptics here who are kind of generally opposed to the idea of using AI in these ways, and want to keep up with it so you can complain about it. I'm going to go ahead and try to get a show of hands just so I can get a read on the audience. And I'll do the show of hands for each of these, but if you think of yourself as being in multiple groups, I mean, that's kind of understandable. Hopefully you aren't rabidly opposed to AI and also intending to build it yourself. That would be kind of weird. But some of these other combinations, like Scout with some curiosity about building, that would fit me for quite a while, I suppose. So let's go ahead and do a show of hands. And hopefully, Addie, you can help keep up with the Zoomers and get a sense. I guess I can see them here. So who thinks of themselves as a builder or an aspiring builder is really interested in building chatbots like this? Getting quite a few of those. As, and getting some of that in the Zoom chat also. Yep. Yeah, these new animated things on Zoom are make it a little easier to track without looking real carefully at the the Zoom call. Good. Okay. Who thinks of themselves as a scout, just trying to keep up with the changes, not necessarily interested in doing things? Oh, we're getting some of the same hands, which is good. And I can't tell in the Zoomers. Good. Okay. And who thinks of themselves as a skeptic, thinking this might be kind of a bad idea, but for some reason you want to be here anyhow? Getting a few of those as well. Good. Okay. Good. So I have a mix here, and I think that's kind of ideal. We get much more interesting discussion if we have different aisles, different sides of the aisle, all present in the room. And I will try to have some things to keep each of the different parts of the audience happy as we talk about this stuff. Good. I think while we're on this, we had probably a manageable number of builders, and I think it'll help me and maybe other members of the audience to hear what you're aspiring to build. So those of you who were thinking of yourselves as a builder or an aspiring builder of chatbots, I'm curious, what sort of chatbot are you thinking that it might be good to make that you're curious about making? Anybody willing to start us off? Yeah. Oh, she wants to put you on microphone.
Yes, I want my spotlight too. My program doesn't have graduate students, so I don't have TAs. So on a basic practical level, there's that. That for the two courses that I most consciously am thinking about looking into this is more to help students with terminology so that I'm not getting students that are trying to get a hold of me like right before, while they're studying for midterms or final exams, trying to get clarification on terms or ID questions, whatever, that the chatbot can give them that feedback immediately rather than waiting for me till it was the weekend, I wasn't checking email type of thing.
Good. Can you also say your name and what field you're in?
I'm Sean Griffin. I'm in the Film and Media Arts department.
Okay, great. Yeah.
So most of students don't take physics in school. And the most common questions I get, how do I study for a physics class? And how do I do this and that? Pretty much I explain everything in syllabus, but still I get like hundreds and hundreds of emails a week just asking basic questions like that. So I need a chatbot who will be giving that same answer. This is how you do this. This is the method. This is what you do. This is how you study. Something like that.
Yeah, that was definitely a direction I shifted with the Tech Society and Value class, where initially I had the chatbot just being primed to talk about course material. And I was asking my students for feedback about how the conversations went, and enough of the feedback they gave me had to do with these other questions about how to study and things they should have gotten from the syllabus and stuff like that, that I ended up deciding I should give the chatbot more information about that. So the sort of study tips that I often write into the emails that you're talking about, I could have the chatbot, I already gave it in a study tips file to my students that they never read, but having the chatbot have that information available also makes it more likely that the students who need it are going to encounter it at the right time.
Yeah. I have one from Zoom. It's like to clarify, this is from Gabriela Vokic, and she's from World Languages. She said that to clarify elementary questions pertaining to the syllabus, assignment instructions, help with elementary course material. I think it aligns with Jordana's comment.
Good. Other aspiring builders, what are you interested in building? Yeah.
I'm interested. Hello. Okay, I'm interested in building bots that can help professors teach their courses better. But as I said, I'm a builder and a skeptic because I haven't been able to find something that is, reliable and trustworthy. So I really want this to work, but I also want it to not put us out of a job and to work well.
Good. Yeah, there definitely is, and I'll touch on that when we get to the should we be doing this part of the talk, this thought that if we're really successful at creating chatbots who do a great job at talking with students, we're risking putting ourselves out of work when we do it. I think the timeline on that for me, and perhaps for you, I don't know, is retirement will probably arrive for me at about the same time as I'll have a hard time finding a job. So it'll be all right for me, but folks younger than me, you may end up being in a hard circumstance in a couple of decades from now. I'm worried about the direction things are going to go with this. Yeah. Other folks want to share what they're interested in building?
The question is more like, what can I build? I'm the scout, so I'll represent there.
Good. I'll give you some hints as to what I've done and what kind of worked and what kind of didn't. That might help. Also, I should be encouraging people to say their names.
I'm Emily Choi. I'm in the Cox School Entrepreneurship.
Great. Okay, great. Let's see. She said she was in the same place as Scout. There are a couple other folks here. Do you want to introduce yourselves? And you could say what you're thinking about, what you're here for.
I'm Carl Bax. I'm in the mathematics department, and we're looking for ways that we can find good methods to employ chatbots as tutors, because the students are using them anyways, and we're looking for kind of best practices.
Good. Yeah, that's a lot of what motivated me, is feeling like the students were using chatbots, but they were often using off-the-shelf things that would use stuff that was plausible from online, but wasn't using the terminology the same way we were using it in the classroom, and it ended up just being a mess. And so I was thinking, well, if the ship's already sailed on them using chatbots, then maybe that makes sense for me to give them a good chatbot to talk with rather than a lousier one. And so that was definitely one of the motivations for me. And I wasn't at all sure when I was setting up the chatbot to talk about Python coding, which I imagine that raises some of the same challenges as math does, where it's not like philosophy where you can spin out lots of more or less synonymous sentences and they work similarly well in philosophy. I mean, we do use our terminology pretty technically in philosophy, but not nearly so technically as the amount of precision that's involved in coding or in math. And I was pleasantly surprised that ChatGPT was actually, especially if you use the paid version of ChatGPT, is actually quite good at Python coding stuff. That's an advancement that my sense is that happened over roughly the last year or so. And so I think there are better prospects for that now, and probably will be even better prospects in the future of having it tutor people through detailed math in a way that's actually helpful.
I think there was a couple people from Zoom wanting to share. So let's see, Amar, if you can say something, if you can hear. There you go.
Hi, this is Amar from the Cox School. One of the things I find with my students is, however you tell them, they always wait till the last minute for turning in a homework or whatever it is. And then they are trying to finish it before the deadline. And oftentimes they stumble on something. It could be a calculation. It could be something we did in class. Now at 11 in the night, they're trying to, or sometimes, 1 a.m., they're trying to send me emails. If I'm awake, I do respond, but, I'm not that awake at that time. So I would rather prefer that two things. One is they get something in a timely manner, so that they can continue with whatever they are up to. So that way, if somebody wants to do it last minute, let that be their choice. I mean, but at the same time, I want something that would sort of substitute for me, kind of give something what I would have done had I been awake at that point. So in some sense, what I'm looking for is to train the chatbot to kind of stand in for me, but at the same time have a very limited role, not step out of bounds in some ways, because the last thing I want is a battle between me and the chatbot. Somebody saying, oh, the chatbot said this and you're saying this, kind of a thing. It used to happen in the old days when they would say, oh, the TA told me this. So this is the reason I feel it's important to get this right before we launch it onto the students, because the unintended consequences could be, a lot more costly. But that's just my opinion.
Yep. No, I'm right with you on all that.
And then Cam also had her hand.
Yes. So I'm an instructional designer here. And on the ops team, I'm actually working with Carl, that is in is in the course today. And so I share, his desires for the tutor. But I think the thing that I want to hear addressed today is the like security of student information and data, and how we can be compliant with those policies. And just keeping that as the forefront as I think about all the ways I want to use this with our students.
Good. Yeah, I haven't prepared any information on that, but I would be curious about if other folks have thoughts on sort of data security, privacy sorts of information. I've had a lot of those concerns about the AI that's now integrated with Canvas that, as far as I can tell, is just outright violating FERPA. And so I'm not going to use it, but maybe somebody will convince me, no, there is some loophole in FERPA that does allow using this. But as far as I can tell, they gather lots of data from training it. And so we're giving an outside party access to lots of student information using that AI that I think legally we aren't supposed to. But my understanding is, at least for the sorts of chatbots that I've used, I assign the students to talk with the chatbot, and in some sense, that's giving some information to ChatGPT that ChatGPT wouldn't have had otherwise, but it's all done with the students choosing what they're disclosing. I'm not disclosing information about the students. So I think it's probably legal with FERPA, though I'm definitely not a legal expert. Yeah, Julian.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the Coalition of the Willing provided ChatGPT licenses. It's an enterprise license, and we do not train ChatGPT with the information that is being shared in an organization. So, Ignite and Canvas is really bad so far, so I'd stay away. But if you're working for Boodlebox, I think I saw that.
Yep.
I think all those, they have their own license agreements. You can check there, but I think if they're for education, they're probably safe-ish. I don't know.
Yeah. My guess is, I haven't looked into it, but my guess is Boodlebox, and also if you assign students to talk with a custom chatbot that I've made, my guess is the whatever agreement SMU has when they're paying for us, and all of us can get access to the paid version of ChatGPT through the Coalition of the Willing, and with an enterprise license that has it not train future versions of ChatGPT based on our discussions with ChatGPT, but I don't think that carries over to our students. So it does mean that when my students are talking with ChatGPT, I don't think I have any plausible way of blocking that from being used in the training of future versions of ChatGPT.
Yeah, I wanted to introduce myself, Durdana from physics. We often, pretty much every day, we face with a certain challenge when we're trying to teach something to a student that comes with us with understanding that they took some math courses or some other courses like chemistry, etc. And it turns out they know nothing that we need them to know. So we need maybe to build some chatbot that can help them to fill in those gaps that have nothing to do with our department and the material we are teaching. But at the same time, students don't fall through cracks, and they're like, these cracks are becoming size of a king. Right?
Yeah, no, that is a big impetus for me also on this. It's just students are so diverse. They have different backgrounds, different gaps, different interests, and it's hard in a classroom for me to not bore the people who already have something, filling in the gaps for other people. Whereas the chatbot, if the person can reveal their gaps to the chatbot and the chatbot can help to fill them in without boring everybody else, that ends up being a much better use of everybody's time. And so that's, being able to handle the diversity of students and give more of them what they really need to have a good learning experience. That's one of the big impetuses for me. Good. Anybody else want to introduce themselves? Yeah.
Yes, I'm Dr. Josian Albelo Cortez, and I'm also working with Carl on AI chat boxes for math. And one of my concerns, or I'll say my goals, will be to use ChatGPT, but to also make the professor's life a little easier. for example, it can create worksheets for you, and it can create LaTeX code that can be cumbersome to type. Like for example, you can type something that you can go back and edit later, and it does that rather well. So you can actually do that, and also kind of like update it using your students' skill sets. So, and that's one endpoint that I want to address. And then the other thing is also deciphering students' handwriting sometimes. I mean, that it kind of a little bit funny, but sometimes like you look at what you're given there in the print and you're like, okay, well, let's see if ChatGPT can understand it. And it can actually, decipher it in some way. And offer you some solutions.
I usually just get some neutral third party to peek at the letter that I can't tell what letter it is, and go with whatever they tell me when they don't know what the right answer was going to be. But yeah, sending the image to ChatGPT and having it say, well, what does this say? And going with it. That's a clever idea.
You're not entirely sure as to what is written there. Is it an E? Is it a epsilon? Then it can actually do that for you.
Good. I think we might have one more person in the room who hasn't introduced themselves. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm in applied physiology, sport management. What up, DB? So we, one of the things is with the new financial model that's about to happen is that we're going to be looking at possibly expanding our seats, our capacity in our classrooms potentially. And so as a faculty member who teaches at Fort Worth, any assistance that I can have would be most helpful.
Good. Yeah, that definitely is a motivation as we're being pushed towards having larger classes and lots of things that it wouldn't take a PhD to answer a lot of the questions that the students have. So getting something that, if I had an actual TA would be perfectly capable of answering, but like some of you have mentioned, you're being in departments where you don't have actual TAs that those questions can go to, finding some way where I can save the time where I can talk about real deep level content with students with something else answering the simpler questions that they didn't need me to get the answer to. That's definitely one of the carrots that's dangling there that helps motivate trying to set these sorts of things up. Good. I think I'll go ahead and move us forward a little bit with some things. So you guys brainstormed lots of things that you'd like TAs to do, and I think it'll probably overlap with this list that I came up with here. So discussing course material and answering student questions about course material, about the syllabus, about ways of studying. Those are all things that would be nice to have a virtual TA that could do this sort of stuff with students. Let's start putting some question marks on things where these are things that I'm not sure about the current state of the technology. So helping with more technical projects where precision is really required, like we've had folks talk about math or physics or coding. These are cases where getting something that's in the ballpark of right often fails disastrously. And so you really have to get it right. And the technology is nearly there. I think on this, my experience having it help with Python coding with students is if the students knew the right questions to ask and could copy paste the relevant code in, it would do a good job of answering. But often the students didn't ask the questions in the right way, and often it would lead them astray. So I feel like I had kind of a checkered experience with that, but I expect it'll be better as the technology matures. So I think we're on the cusp of being able to do that with virtual TAs. Something you might be interested in, especially if you're in a more writing-oriented field, and do you think that any student papers are whoops, I touched the display, which makes it do something. If you're in a more writing-oriented field, people have to say, well, I have no idea whether my students had a chatbot to write their paper or whether they wrote it themselves. And so a lot of folks are inclined towards doing oral exams now to test and motivate students to really understand the material themselves, even if they're using chatbots along the way. But ain't nobody got time for that. So it'd be nice to have TAs or virtual TAs to do that. I put the ... on this one because I am giving a talk later in this series about the state of the art, about using AIs to administer oral exams. And so that one we'll talk about later in the semester if you want. Giving feedback on assignments, that would be something that TAs can kind of do, and you might hope that chatbots would do. thus far, my experience with this, I've heard of other professors having better luck, and if you've had better luck, I'd like to hear about it. My attempts to do it here, I haven't been super happy with the quality of feedback that it would give. So I think this is probably coming with a later version of ChatGPT. The current version, at least, my luck hasn't been great at getting it to give feedback that felt at all like the feedback that I would give my students. And grading opens more cans of worms here. So at this point, I've heard of other people using it for this, but I haven't tried to cross into that yet myself. So for me, at least, this is the stuff that I've tried to do with chatbots and feel most confident doing. And so it's the stuff that I'm going to talk about in this class is just setting up a chatbot that can do these sorts of things. But I think in the near future, you'll consider whether you want to do some of this other stuff with virtual TAs as well. Okay, so if you are thinking about building your own custom chatbot for a class, one key question to ask is, well, what service am I going to use? I'll talk about the two that I have the most experience with. So one is a service called Boodlebox. And if you have downloaded the slides from the link that Addie put in Zoom or that I had showed on screen earlier, this is a hyperlink here that you could, if you control click in PowerPoint, that'll take you to the bot that I'm talking about here, or at least one of the bots that I made for that tech ethics class. You have to create a free account at Boodlebox, but Boodlebox is free, though they have a paid version that gives you a higher quality chatbot to talk with, but you can use the free version, and that seemed to work fine for my students. It gives you access to multiple different large language models. I had set it up to have ChatGPT was running under the hood, but it also runs Claude and a few others and lots of paid ones that you can choose between. Boodlebox is basically made by educators for educators and has options for you to have your students be in a group, and you can view the chats that they've had with the custom chatbot that you made, which might help in some cases for you to gauge what's going on in your students' minds and what sorts of questions they're asking. So that might be useful for people. I was attracted, I guess, by all those features when I did it. And at the time that I was setting this up for my Tech Society and Value class, ChatGPT's custom chatbots were not free for students to use. So this was the most attractive free option. Later, ChatGPT opened up and now has some free access for custom chatbots. So if you want a custom chatbot to be free for your students to use, you can create just a custom chatbot in ChatGPT and distribute that for students, and they'll have some free access to it. I don't know exactly what the limits are. I think they can do a certain number of prompts per hour or something like that, and then they have to wait for it to recharge before they can do more. So they don't get the full quality access that they would get from having a paid subscription, but they still have enough access that might be enough for keeping them happy. And if you didn't want to give students another bill to pay, they can have free access that way. Oh, and incidentally, here's a link to a chatbot for my Minds, Brains, and Robotics class in ChatGPT. My sense is very few of our students already have a Boodlebox account, so they'll at least have to form a free account, and they might pay to get a better version of it. Whereas when I surveyed my students about ChatGPT, most of them have a ChatGPT account, and some pretty large fraction, close to half of them, already have a paid ChatGPT account. So they already have full access to this. So it'll generally be more convenient for a lot of your students if you're having it be ChatGPT, and if they already have the paid account, they'll already have access to the paid features. If you do want to keep an eye on the chats that students are having, you can have the students share chats with you. So that sort of benefit that I was thinking of Boodlebox as having of allowing me to keep an eye on how the chats are going with the chatbot, I think having students share their ChatGPT chats with you can end up giving you basically the same benefits. I will note there's other large language model options out there that I haven't surveyed all of them, and maybe some of you have good experience with other ones that you want to recommend. These are the two that I have the most experience with, and if I were just recommending today, if you're starting fresh, I think I would probably just recommend sticking with ChatGPT because it's the biggest player in this pool, one that a lot of your students will be familiar with already. And so probably that's what I would start with if I was just starting out today. But I had good experience with Boodlebox also, and view it as a fine one. And maybe lots of others would work just as well as well. Go ahead.
Yes, because I am not knowledgeable. Does SMU have institutional accounts for either of these things?
Yeah. So my understanding,
and if so, how do we access them so we can start working on this?
My understanding, and the CTE folks can keep me honest on this, is for faculty, if you join SMU's Coalition of the Willing, they'll give you yourself access to a ChatGPT account. That's the full paid enterprise version of ChatGPT. For students, I think currently SMU doesn't have any sort of accounts for students in either of these.
Students have access to Microsoft Copilot.
Oh, Microsoft.
So that is, so it's Microsoft. It's an enterprise account. So all students have access to that because it's part of the Office 365 bundle that we have. So they should have access to that. Whether it has the ability for you to create bots, I haven't played around with Microsoft Copilot. But for faculty, yeah, if you can email the Office of Faculty Success or, Jason Warner, you can request to be added to this Coalition of the Willing group. It's a group of faculty. They're actively using an enterprise-ish version of ChatGPT. So that is a SMU version that is not training the ChatGPT model. So it's a little more safe than the others. We do not have a Boodlebox subscription. However, if you like access to Boodlebox or a paid tool similar to Boodlebox and you want to pay for it, I encourage you at the start of the semester, the CTE provides a just-in-time teaching technology grant up to $500 a year. That if you want to pilot using that to create a bot for your class or give your students access to it, that is a type of initiative that you could do it. We just closed for the spring term, so the train has left the station on that one. But in the fall, right before classes start, you get an email, and it's a very low bureaucracy way for you to get some money to get the technology.
Good. And I will note with Boodlebox, the free account for a professor and the free accounts for students give you basic access and lets you create custom chatbots. In ChatGPT, I think you need a paid account to create a custom chatbots in ChatGPT. So I would encourage you to get in the Coalition of the Willing to get access to a paid account for ChatGPT so you don't have to pay yourself to be able to create the custom chatbots in ChatGPT. The students can have limited access, some number of prompts per hour that they give it for free, or a lot of them will be interested in paying or already do pay for it anyway. Good. But yeah, neither of these is something that's going to be directly integrated in Canvas or anything like that. Good. Okay. To say a little bit about what you get when you create a custom chatbot with one of these services. With Boodlebox, it basically is running some other large language model under the hood. So Boodlebox is basically gathering some information from you about what you want the chatbot to be like and providing a wrapper over top of it. But like when I was using Boodlebox, it was basically ChatGPT under the hood that the students were talking with anyway. And similarly, if you set up a custom ChatGPT bot, it'll be ChatGPT that they're talking with. And sometimes you'll hear professors say, oh, I created this custom chatbot for my class, and it's just talking about the material for my class, not talking about all this other stuff. That's not true. That's never true. I don't think it could ever even be true for this sort of approach. And you wouldn't want it to be true. You want it to be that when a student asks a question using some synonym for words that you'd used in your course materials, that the chatbot understands what that means in terms of your course material. So you need the chatbot to be bringing a lot of background knowledge about the meanings of words. And if students are going to ask about applications to other examples that didn't come up directly in course materials, the chatbot's got to have background knowledge about the other things that the students might try to connect the materials to. So in every case, what you have is this sort of combination of the chatbot that's been trained on a huge corpus of data. Basically, you can think of it as having read the entire internet, that is pretty close to right. And then having some instructions and materials that you've given it that you are encouraging it to talk about in particular. And whatever it does is going to be some mix between drawing on the materials that you've given it and asked it to talk about and drawing on this huge amount of background knowledge that's just built in to the LLM that you're using. And so, I went into this, I'm an old coder, and went into this expecting it to be like coding often is, where you write into your computer program to do something and the computer reads it literally and does exactly what you told it to do. That's not at all what training custom chatbots is like. Instead, I ended up deciding it's a lot more like improv comedy, where you give the improv actors these cues as to what sort of thing you'd like them to be doing in their improv. And then they just go crazy with it. They try to follow your cues a little bit, but they play off of the things that whoever they're talking with has been saying and continue from it. And often they get pretty far away from the initial cues that you gave it. And so you have a little bit of guidance over what the bot is going to do, but it has a whole lot of background knowledge that it's eager to bring to bear at the same time. And it will often end up having departed away from your cues, especially depending on the course of conversation that it's had with a student. So the amount of guidance you have over this is pretty similar to the amount of guidance that, I don't know, Drew Carey has giving the improv actors. And what was that? Whose line is it anyway? Whatever that show was. That's kind of the role you have. You're the Drew Carey telling the chatbot what sort of cues it's supposed to be following. But you do not have strict guidance over what exactly it's going to say. And so the challenge in making these bots is coming up with, well, what's some good guidance that has it act out the improv in a way that's not too bad and is kind of in line with what you were hoping for. But at least with the current technology, it's never going to be perfectly what you were hoping for.
We have a raised hand in Zoom. Amar, is that a current hand? Okay.
Yeah. My question is, I know you are suggesting we should let it have access to something beyond what we tell that. I mean, I think that's good once we get a sense of comfort and trust in the chatbot. But for somebody who's starting out for the first time, what I'm looking for is if I can provide some of the material I use in my course, and I ask it to answer based on that. And suppose if it cannot help itself but go somewhere else to get an answer, I would like it to flag or say something like, this is based on my knowledge, but at the end of the day, this is a matter that you should consult with your professor. The reason why I'm bringing that up is the boundary between, what students will feel comfortable with. And that's the point I was trying to make earlier, that I don't want to get into this battle of, some website somewhere said this, and the chatbot picked it up as if it's gospel. And the issue is, I would rather it defer to me, either saying like, this is not something I see in my notes, so please talk to the professor. Or if we want it to be adventurous, this is what I scoured the internet somewhere and I saw this, but I'm not 100% sure. I would like you to talk to your professor about it, something like that. Because then I think it's a matter of knowing where it is hallucinating versus, where it's something I feel comfortable for students in terms of, knowing there. And there are so many sources out there, at least I would like to vet stuff before I bombard students with some information like that.
Yeah, I'm with you in having those desires, and you can and probably should tell it to do what you're telling it here, but it will not perfectly follow your instructions, and it will definitely bring to bear other information. The most success I've had is, telling it to draw on materials that I've given it, and then being sure that the materials that I give it include answers to the questions that are most likely to be asked by students. It's pretty good at copying out answers, or at least paraphrasing answers that are in the database that I've given it. But if the student asks for something that isn't exactly in the database or in the knowledge base that I've given it, then it very confidently comes up with some answer to give the students anyway. It doesn't flag, here's what directly came from course notes and here's what I got from my background knowledge. It's not good at distinguishing those things and flagging those things to students. So I especially found this, like, for example, answering questions about the syllabus. It would confidently answer questions that the syllabus had been ambiguous about, giving what probably is statistically a common policy for other professors to have, but wasn't my policy. And so I found that I had to be much more explicit about lots of things that I hadn't explicitly said in the syllabus. If I wasn't explicit about it, then it would make up answers that weren't usually the right answers. So there is a strong pressure for you to build the knowledge base in a way that answers the questions that you're hoping that it will answer the way you want, rather than leaving things unspoken. It'll fill in gaps in ways that are often not the way you want it to fill them in if you didn't include it in the knowledge base.
Hi. So is there a way of, from the beginning, telling the chatbot, I want you to operate on a Socratic platform, meaning don't give any answers at all. So here's the material, operate within this material, ask a question that would guide a student, but do not give a direct answer. Do you think that will eliminate errors like that?
You can ask it to. I haven't ever gotten it to successfully stick with that for very long. It generally tries to defer to its conversational partner. And so usually testing out chatbots, whenever I try to have it just ask questions, just lead Socratically, you can talk it out of doing that, tell it in the conversation that you want it to behave differently, and it'll defer to what the most recent request is. So I haven't had a lot of luck, though I did see hands over here, so maybe you guys have had better luck getting chatbots to do just that.
I was going to echo the same sentiment. When you set up your bot, there's a description box where you tell it what kind of bot it needs to be, and you can tell it to be a Socratic bot, never give answers, and it will try to stick to that. There are ways where you can kind of trick it to give you other answers. So I have not personally found that either. That's why I'm on the skeptic side of things, where I want it to work. I just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. I guess I'll go ahead and note that maybe that makes me a little bit on the skeptic side of things, but my inclination here is to say, well, sure, it's not exactly the tool that I wish it was, but it still is a really powerful tool. And are there ways I can make use of the tool that it is, even if it isn't doing exactly what I would wish it would do? Can I still get it to do something that's worthwhile and adds to the learning experience that my students are going to have? And for me, even though I ended up needing to adapt my expectations somewhat because what I had initially envisioned was not something that it was willing to do, I still ended up with something that I think was worthwhile for my students to use and was adding to their learning experiences. So yeah, it'd be nice if we could get exactly what we envisioned the ideal chatbot to be. I think ultimately some of this, there's just a sort of paradox in here where we feel like I want it to talk just about my own course material and not talk about anything else, but I also want it to be able to understand questions using synonyms that weren't in my course material. You need it to have some background knowledge in addition to what's right there in your course material. If somebody really did start with a blank slate and read just your course material and had no other information about anything, they'd be useless as a chatbot. You need the chatbot to have a lot of background knowledge for it to be useful. And then you're always stuck with this mix of any response it gives is going to be partly informed by its background knowledge, partly informed by the knowledge base you gave it. And it's not always going to strike that mix correctly. But honestly, human TAs aren't always going to strike that mix correctly either. Okay, let's keep going on this. So I'll go ahead and talk through. I wasn't sure how much time to spend on this here, but I'll go ahead and say some key steps involved in creating these custom chatbots. So the first thing I'll encourage just as step 0 is ask a chatbot for guidance. The generic ChatGPT is quite good at giving you advice about how to create a custom ChatGPT bot, telling you which things to click on and giving you guidance as to good sorts of instructions to give the chatbot and stuff like that. Boodlebox itself has a custom chatbot that gives advice about creating custom Boodlebox chatbots. So it's very meta. And it was pretty useful for me when I was that's a good place to go to get started on this. And whenever you're getting stuck, it's a good place to help get you unstuck. So one key thing is going to be writing instructions for the bot, and that's the sort of the things that Julian was talking about just now, where you try to get it to be as Socratic as you can and adopt a good tone. I've given here the instructions. These are both in the box folder that I gave you the link before. If you have the slides and control-click that, it'll take you straight to it. Or if you go to the box folder, you can probably decipher which files these are. These are the instructions that I used for these two chatbots, which include things like encouraging it to ask questions, not give big, long answers, have the student take more of a leading role in guiding the conversation, adopting the tone of a TA, things like that. And a lot of these are a product of me iteratively trying, seeing the things that it did that I didn't like so much and trying to tweak the instructions to get it to behave a bit more like I liked. And so my guess is, depending on exactly what your class is, starting with some instructions like this, or you can find other folks' instructions that if you copy pasted these over, it would probably work fairly well just directly for your class, or make the obvious changes like what the class is that is a TA for and stuff like that. But these instructions at least are the initial prompts that Drew Carey is giving the improv TA as to what sort of character it's supposed to be playing. The other main thing that you give the custom chatbot as you're training it is a knowledge base. And here I tried just for a lot of my classes, I have PowerPoint slides, or you can see my PowerPoints tend to try to have not spelled out in big, long sentences. And so the chatbot would fill in the gaps from bullet point items in different ways than I really wanted. The knowledge base files, it really helps just having text files that spell out in detailed sentences the information that you want the bot to have. So for me, at least, that was the most time-consuming part of setting up these chatbots, was getting text versions of all the things that I wanted it to be able to talk about. You get into somewhat legally shaky ground if you're going to upload readings to the chatbot I'm not sure when that violates copyright laws and stuff like that. My solution thus far has just been to upload my own notes about the readings, but not upload course readings themselves. If your course readings are ones that are widely known, which a lot of the philosophy literature is, it'll know a lot about it because of its background knowledge. If it's anything that's been discussed a lot online or is present online, it'll probably be in the background knowledge anyway.
It will read PDF files?
Yes. Yeah, you can use any sort of text files. All of this is text in ordinary English. So none of it's like coding where you don't have to learn some new programming language. You give it instructions that are akin to the instructions you might give a human TA if you're telling them, here's the tone I want you to take in class and the way I want you to lead class. You'll write instructions in ordinary English for the chatbot also, and any sort of text file. I mean, a lot of them were just docx or PDF that I uploaded. Markdown works pretty well. It deciphers formatting from Markdown better than it does for other text files. So you'll probably lose whatever italicization or boldface you have in a PDF. But if the equivalent of that in Markdown, it will pay attention to. So I think probably the ideal file format for this is Markdown, but any text format will work, is my sense. Might vary from LLM to LLM what knowledge bases work best for it. Good. And here are a couple of example files that if you download the version of the PowerPoint or go look in the box, you can find files to see the sort of level of text description that I included in the instructions for the bots. Good. Then you'll want to test it out. Sit down and have conversations, role play as students having different sorts of confusions that students are likely to have, and see how the bot does at asking the sort of questions you imagine your students asking the bot. And if it's not interacting the way you want it to, go back and tweak the instructions for the bot to try to instruct it to behave more the way that you'd like it to. if it's filling in the gaps in the wrong way, then you may need to enrich your knowledge base to tell it better how you want it to answer particular questions. And it's kind of fun playing around as though you're a dumb student asking questions and seeing how the chatbot will respond as you have various misunderstandings that students are kind of likely to have. Once you're happy enough with the bot to let students start working with it, you can publish it. My sense on both Boodlebox and ChatGPT is once it's published, anybody who has the URL anywhere in the world can go use the bot. So I don't think we have good access to making one that's completely private. So that's another reason why you may not want to be uploading sensitive copyrighted material into the knowledge base, that anything that's in there can be gotten out by somebody who goes to the bot and asks it the right questions. They can extract whatever you've put in the knowledge base if they ask the right questions. And as you publish it, you'll get a link that you can again give to your students. I usually would give my students assignments saying, go talk with the chatbot for an hour and then write some reflections here to submit on Canvas about how it went talking with the chatbot. Yeah.
Thinking about that, when you make your chatbot and the source material you give it, be careful to not feed it your actual exams as a study guide. Okay, so you can feed it materials that will be on the exam, but not exam with answers and stuff like that, because as you said, they can be extracted. So
good. Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and go on to my last slide, which is a sort of should we be doing this sort of slide. So I have the balance here with some pros and cons that we'll put. So one big pro, and Mara, I think, was bringing this up with the 11 o'clock at night emails. It's great that it's fast. When a student has a burning question, they can ask the chatbot and get an answer right away, so they won't be stuck and they can keep making progress in what they're working on. And something I found when I asked my students about their experience using it, they appreciated how fast it was. They also were super comfortable using it, especially compared to I replaced old assignments that had involved talking on discussion boards with other students, replaced those with talking with a chatbot instead, and they felt way more comfortable having conversations with a chatbot, way less social anxiety. Different students will learn in different ways and have different holes in their background that they need to fill in, and this can be a really useful supplement. I don't think it should completely replace the other sorts of things we're offering our students, but adding it on as an extra supplement can be really helpful for at least some students. It kind of makes us seem more savvy as professors if we can set these things up, and it helps to make our students more tech savvy, giving them experience with these AIs that are going to be, for better or worse, the future that they're going to live in is working with these AIs. So it is real practical skills that they're getting by interacting with these chatbots. And this can be really liberating. I'll go ahead and put up the XKCD cartoon about how, in theory, this sort of automation that I can spend a bit of time writing some code or writing some instructions for the chatbot, and then once the automation takes over, I'll save a bunch of time afterwards as the chatbot is answering a bunch of questions that previously I would have had to answer. And so that's the ideal that you'd hope for here. Some of you may have seen the cartoon before and realized that the punchline in that cartoon is here's how it works out in reality. A lot of the time when you try to do this sort of automation thing, that it takes way more time than you expected to prepare it. For me, at least, the investment in it, a lot of it was writing up in careful sentences, notes that I'd given them as PowerPoint slides, which was kind of a good thing for me to be doing anyway. For my students, that just having the text version of the notes helps the students. It was a manageable amount of time. It didn't balloon out of proportion the way that lots of attempted automation projects do. So for me, at least, this didn't turn into much harder to automate than I hoped it would be. This idea about you being stuck with ongoing development for it. Oops, what happened here? On the bright side, you get tremendous development just out of as OpenAI rolls out the next version of ChatGPT, your bot is going to get smarter at talking to students because of the changes they made. You can upload and update the database, the knowledge base, as you change your course material and stuff like that. But it doesn't take a huge amount of continuing investment to keep it up to date. And in fact, you'll get a whole lot of improvement in it just from the changes that OpenAI makes without you needing to do anything. So that ends up not being super time consuming. So for me, at least, I actually did get the, in theory, version here that wasn't definitely an upfront investment. Can't lie about that, but it is also a time saver eventually. That was definitely my experience in both the classes that I've used it. So I'll go ahead and put over on the con side here. It is costly with that upfront investment, and depending on which model you're using, it may be one that students will want to pay for to use, so it'll be costly for students to use. We've talked a bit about the imperfection issues. The answers it gives won't always be the answers you wished it would give. It's been good enough that I haven't hated it. I had worse experience in the Python coding class of it. Sometimes it would suggest code to the students that just flat out wouldn't work. And so I replaced a lot of questions students would ask me about coding with them asking me a lot fewer questions, but more of them were me helping to undo the things that the AI had led them into wrongly. So I got more of those sorts of questions, but a lot less of other sorts of questions. Might be concerns about whether we're shirking our responsibilities to our students by offloading some of the things that really should be our job onto the AIs. So I think that at least for myself, I still try to offer my students just as much willingness to talk with them, answer their questions as I had before having the chatbot. I'm just offering them this as a supplement, but not trying to, or at least not refusing to do things that I would have done without the chatbot. You might worry that we're abetting students by giving them a chatbot that's really good at working on course material. You're giving them the tools that they can use to cheat more easily on your course. And by encouraging them to use chatbots like this, you're lessening the barriers. In fact, students all are really experienced with chatbots already anyway, so it's not like you're going to be the one who got was the gateway drug that got him into doing chatbots. But still, there are worries that we might be setting things up where we're abetting students. And also, folks had brought this idea up before about, the more I do to come up with a chatbot that can do some of the job that I do, the more we're paving the road to a future in which AI ends up taking over, offering individualized education experiences to students rather than having human professors offer a sort of one-size-fits-all educational experience to whole classrooms at once. And that may not be a future that you're eager to help pave our way to. But as I'm doing this, they're the good intentions. I am trying to give a better learning experience to my students as I do it, but I also recognize that I'm moving us along the way towards a future that we may or may not want to be moving towards. Okay, let's open this up for discussion for whatever people want. And I think also some people may need to duck out. Yep.
Founder of fuzzy logic and artificial intelligence codes.
Ah.
Yes, Lutfi. Lutfi Zadeh. That's his last name. Alive. Yeah. No, he died in 2017, but yeah, it's still recent. Yeah, very recent. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thing that I do is like I do I have them ready there available on Canvas.
But they're not there immediately. It's sort of like you have to show up to class. If you miss class, then slowly it gets rolled out slowly. Do you know if there's a way of for chatbots to okay, we've covered this material, so now you can talk about this, but we haven't talked about this material yet, so don't talk about this.
Good.
So that the students are I don't need to go to class. I can just talk to the chatbot.
Yeah. I guess if you're going to make the chatbot available to them eventually and they're willing to wait until you make the one available that's willing to talk about those slides, then they can still skip class and wait for it to be available.
Different chatbots?
Yeah. The closest to what you're asking for that I know of is that in my Tech Society and Value class, I made one chatbot to talk about the first third of the class, a second chatbot to talk about the next third of the class primarily, but I also included knowledge from the first third of the class in case students had connecting together questions and stuff like that. So that ends up being as far as Boodlebox or ChatGPT is concerned, they're two separate chatbots. That's just that their knowledge
Okay.
bases overlap.
So it's
and that's the way of
separate chatbots.
incrementally rolling out more content with the later chatbots as you go.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah.
Something that I've been seeing with my students is that, unfortunately, when they use ChatGPT or something in order to study for exams, is that they get really good at absorbing a solution that's already given, but then that doesn't help them when it comes to the exam, where they have to generate a solution on their own. So, what I'd really like to see or develop is I suppose a chatbot that is kind of closer to the Socratic method, or one that would offer up potential solution techniques for a problem, rather than saying, here are the exact sequence of steps that you solve, and then boom, here is the correct answer at the end. Can it do that? Offer techniques rather than
Pardon me. Yeah, that I'm with you in wishing for it. And I feel like it's a real battle here. You can write in the instructions for the chatbot what sort of Socratic approach you want it to take. But the underlying engine is something like ChatGPT, and most of their customers are people who go to it wanting answers and not wanting a Socratic dialogue with them. So ChatGPT is built to provide answers and give people finished solutions, rather than to do this sort of educational experience where we're trying to nudge students in the right direction as they mostly figure things out themselves. So they'll be developing the skills to figure it out themselves entirely later on. That's not what ChatGPT is built to do generally. And so it's a real fight to get it to take on that role, or at least that's been my experience.
I have a question from the Zoom. Have you gotten feedback from your students about the bot and its effectiveness?
Yeah, I did ask feedback in both of these classes. In general, the students really liked the bots in both of the classes. And I was kind of on the fence after the Python coding class, because I could see that it was often leading students astray, suggesting code that just wouldn't work for them. And I think students generally are not a great judge. Maybe it makes sense. They shouldn't be as good a judge as a PhD is at what's a good answer and what isn't a good answer. They tend to think of the quality of answers as being high, even when it wasn't. Even when I can tell it wasn't a great answer the bot was giving, they think it was a great answer. And so that helps to inflate students thinking that the bot was better than it was. But definitely, in my tech ethics class, I was replacing online discussion board assignments with talk with a chatbot assignments, and the students were overwhelmingly thought that was a good move. In the Python programming class, I gave it to them as something they could use if they wanted to, and they really appreciated having it available. And a lot of them said, yeah, it was really helpful to me to have it. And they were glad that it was available. But I didn't, in that class, force them to use it. I just gave it to them as an option. But definitely my experience in that class was in past semesters when I've taught it, there's a whole lot of hand-holding, lots of Zoom calls late at night with students, helping them fix what's wrong with their code and stuff like that. And 90% of that went away with this class, that they would ask ChatGPT instead of asking me, for better or worse.